Well, we had a little bit of a issue getting started today, but let me tell you, welcome back to AzureFunBytes. My name is Jake Gordon. Thanks for dealing with the little bit of a live issue. I wanted to give you all just a quick intro to Microsoft Ignite, which is this November 2nd through 4th. We're going to go away. There you go. That's enough of that. Sorry about those little technical difficulties. When you do it live, sometimes weird things happen. Anyway, welcome back to AzureFunBytes. My name is Jake Gordon. Last week, I couldn't be with you, and it was because we were doing a really great event called Create DevOps. We got to be able to have conversations with everybody about different aspects of DevOps and what made up. And so I want to thank everybody who watched. This week, we're back. And this week, we're going to be talking a little bit more around the something that's, I guess, a DevOps process that's become a lot more popular. It is called GitOps. So the big theme of today is making your deployment just one Git push away. And so I think that you'll all learn a lot. I've got a really great guest this week. He's got so much great information to share on this subject, and I'm going to bring him in. It's none other than Julien Dubois. How you doing, Julien?
Hi, pleased to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. Thank you very much. And so I was really interested when you proposed this topic of GitOps, and also we'll talk a little bit of moving forward about NubesGen. I really think that Git-based management makes a ton of sense to me. And I'll let you get into that a little bit more as we go along. But I really believe Git-based management for operations makes a lot of sense because we give ourselves a single source of truth. And I think that ultimately, when we're creating infrastructure for applications and we're creating pipelines, we're creating infrastructure as code, we want to look at a single place to go to, so that we reduce the amount of touch points in the actual deployment process.
Totally agree with you. It's a huge trend in the industry today. It's well, originally with all those past services, people just wanted to Git push and have the apps into production. That was mostly simple apps, like you just have a web app and maybe a database. And now it's going one step further. There was a whole infrastructure being managed through Git. So that means using a tool like Terraform, an infrastructure as code tool that is going to manage the infrastructure for themselves. And then they want also to use CI/CD pipelines like GitHub Actions to deploy the app to that infrastructure. So the idea is that you Git push and it creates all updates, refreshes your infrastructure, and it publishes your apps. And as a developer, it's super easy and super cool because I just Git push and I'm live. And as an ops, it's very good because I've got a language like Terraform, like Bicep, and I can manage my infrastructure easily. Using Git, I can tag it, branch it, everything. Well, everything that you can do with Git. And so as an ops, it's also very easy for me to better understand what's going to happen when I update my system, because I can test easily. I can easily also update my production systems. It's easy for me to understand what's in production and update it. It's very exciting to see all those things arriving today, because all of this is still quite new. It's a few years old for people who were ahead of the curve, but it's arriving now, and it's very exciting to see all of this arriving now, especially in Azure and GitHub.
Absolutely. So I want to remind everybody that every week when we do the show, we have a poll, and this time we're going to ask have you implemented GitOps for your application and infra deployments. So you can head over to aka.ms/learntv and go ahead right away. And so also I want to remind you that there is Microsoft Learn. And Microsoft Learn is a wonderful place to get free education around Azure. You can also look up processes like DevOps. You can learn about ML ops, all these different types of subjects. And Julien, I know that we all even have great stuff on Java.
there's a great learning path on MS Learn. I know it because it's my team and me who are doing it. There will be soon 3 learning paths, in fact, because we made so much content. It's so big. The learning path has grown to be so huge that we're going to split it in probably 3 parts. So there will be 3 Java learning paths, maybe more. We see a huge demand for learning Java, of course, but learning Java on Azure with Microsoft Learn, because Microsoft Learn is really a great platform for, people who want to learn, but also for us, for the writers. It's really well done. So it's a very efficient way for us to teach people how to use Java on Azure. So, if you're interested, have a look and keep having a look, because in the next few months, there's going to be a lot more content. We're very excited by this also.
So, Julien, we've got a lot to talk about. You've got a lot to show me. And I want to remind everybody one more time, if I hadn't reminded you enough, Microsoft Ignite, it's next week. You can go ahead and register for free right now, aka.ms/Ignite. It is a global virtual event. It'll be really interesting. There'll be lots of great sessions, keynotes, you name it. I always look forward to Ignite. I know that we got to do stuff like Ignite the Tour for a little while and be part of actually meeting people all over the globe. But nowadays, we're virtual, and I think that's great, because I think that we're getting this out to more people. So any information that people can take on and learn about, and doing it in quicker and easier ways, where they don't necessarily have to get on a plane, and as a lot of us miss doing so, but it's just more availability. So, Julien, I wanted to ask you, now that I've got you here, I always like to ask my guests a little bit about them before we kind of really get into the technology. And we covered a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today. But the first question I like to ask you, Julien, before we get into the rest is, how did you get here? I love asking it that way. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I'm currently working at Microsoft. See, I've got a little raccoon like you. Well, mine doesn't have a shirt, so I'm currently working at Microsoft as a manager for the Java developer advocacy team. So I'm a Java guy. I've been doing Java for more than 20 years, maybe, even more. I'm getting a bit old now. I'm French, so I'm living near Paris. And so I started Java just after school. I did, I would say, a lot of companies. I was a freelancer. I worked for startups and so on. So I did a lot of Java in various different backgrounds. I started working with cloud technologies very early because of that. And I saw a lot of different Java technologies. I'm always in the Java ecosystem, but it's huge. So you can spend 20 years and not learn everything because it's huge and it's moving all the time. And so that's how there's one more thing, because we're going to touch that just afterwards. I created an open source project called JHipster, which is, the name is fun. It's Java Hipster. It's Java for hipsters. I did it mostly for fun at the beginning. Well, and the name, the name is fun. That's also how it worked, funny name, funny guy. Everything was fun. And it became hugely successful. But you can see the numbers here. We've got nearly now 20,000 GitHub stars. We've got lots of users, lots of contributors. And because that thing grew so big at some point, I had some discussion with Microsoft. And that's how I get there, basically. It's mostly thanks to JHipster. I owe a lot of my career to JHipster. And so the project now is 8 years old. It's still working very well. Because it's a huge community, and if some of them hear us, thanks a lot for being part of the community, because I'm not doing as much as I used to to do now. It's a very successful project. I also became a Java champion thanks to JHipster, and Java champions is a huge thing in Java. And we are, I think, now 12 or 13 Java champions at Microsoft. There is a lot of Java people, influent and expert Java people at Microsoft. That's also something, hopefully we'll have time to talk about. And that's also how I joined. I was hired by, initially it was Bruno Borg. Bruno is a Java champion also. So.
I was lucky to have talked with Rory Preddy recently, who I know is a great user of Java, loves to kind of talk to people about it, get information out there. So, Julien, I'd love to.
Rory in my team is awesome.
Yeah, we're really lucky in the advocacy team to have so many talented people from across different spectrums of technology being able to cover all sorts of different subjects. And today you're going to kind of cover a couple different subjects that are all related to one big idea, which is deploying your application into the cloud.
Yeah. So, initially, let me start with, let's say, JHipster, because that's how everything started anyway. So JHipster is a code generator. So it's not ready to deploy to the cloud. Well, we've got what we call sub-generators, and there are sub-generators to deploy to the cloud. But the original goal of JHipster is to help you code your application quickly while generating parts of it. We'll do a short demo because we're going to create a new app because we need something to deploy. Then what I really want to talk about today, of course, is GitOps and deploying to the cloud. So we'll take that app and deploy it to the cloud with another tool that I've created, which is called NubesGen. And NubesGen is a little bit like JHipster. Well, I'm basically doing the same thing again. It's also a code generator, but this time for your infrastructure as code. So mostly Terraform, and also now we're working also on Bicep. So it's the same thing, but it's to help you deploy to the cloud, which JHipster does, but not as well. Because I did not know, I did not know Terraform at the time.
Gotcha. Well, let me ask you then to kind of define it if you would like to, and then we'll kind of look at what the quote-unquote official way of describing it. But I'm curious to ask you, what is your definition of GitOps?
That's a good question. Yeah, because originally, it's a methodology that was created by a company called WeaveWorks, and that's it's made by people from the Kubernetes world. And it's basically like an agent that is watching your infrastructure and is going to refresh it with regards to your Git repository. So it's going to use Git as a single source of truth, and it's going to update your Kubernetes cluster depending on what you have in your Git repo. What is important here is not the technology like Kubernetes and so on. What's important is the methodology. The methodology is great. And that's what I wanted to use with NubesGen, but NubesGen, we went a different path. Some people say it's one step further, but it really depends on your state of mind. With NubesGen, what we do is we generate some Terraform code. And so and Bicep is coming also, but say originally it's Terraform. So we generate your Terraform code. We put it in Git. That's the original idea. And then the GitOps part is that we create GitHub Actions that are going to watch your Git repository. So when you push something to your branch, typically it's going to see that. And then it's going to update your infrastructure depending on what you change in your Terraform code. So what we'll do today is generate some infrastructure as code configuration with Terraform that will deploy typically the JHipster web apps that we're going to do. And then when you touch anything in your Git repo, GitHub Actions will kick in and will update everything and will deploy everything. So basically, I will just git push and be available on Azure, which is my goal. My goal is not really GitOps. My goal is exactly that first sentence that you said. It's like, I want to git push to Azure. And git pushing to Azure, it's two things. It's creating the infrastructure or refreshing it and deploying your app. And both of those are difficult to achieve. But today we have tools to automate everything, and that's really super cool.
So I know that one of the big proponents and actually the person who kind of helped, I guess, coin the term, Alexis Richardson, he's over at WeaveWorks. He just really wanted to find a way to implement continuous deployment by utilizing a single source of truth. And I think that just makes a ton of sense. And I know he really went out of his way to kind of get people to understand that this is a smart way to do your deployments for your infrastructure.
Yeah, the methodology is great. And then you can have different implementations, of course, but the idea, the original idea is really good, both as an ops and as a dev.
And what's funny is that I guess he paid attention that we're talking about this today, because he says, I really want to show you something extra cool now. I will have to meet up with you at some point, Alexis, and hear about what the something cool is. I know it'll be great. I know he also has really interesting information on Twitter all the time where you can go and hear him talk about GitOps. So you talked a little bit about NubesGen, and I'm curious about this. What exactly can I deploy with NubesGen? Is there any kind of limitations, or is it for every application?
Oh, so, well, there is one big limitation today. It's limited to Azure because, well, I work for Azure. It obviously we could, we based on Terraform initially, so we could support anything that Terraform supports, but as I work for Azure, I'm mostly, of course, working with Azure.
Sure.
And then as we support Bicep, well, Bicep was quite obviously only work on Azure, unless there is some very important changes with our competitors. So the real limitation is Azure. Then, so in terms of languages, so I'm a Java guy, so maybe we support Java a little bit better than the others, but you can deploy C#, JavaScript, Node.js. So we've got native support from them, typically using App Service. With Azure App Service, we've got support for JavaScript and .NET and so on. And then also we support Docker, so that's a bit cheating, but if we support Docker, we like to support anything that you can put in a container. So you don't really have any limitations in terms of languages. And then in terms of Azure services, we, of course, don't support all the Azure services because there is, I don't know, 500 of them. But we support the main ones when I would say, when you're a normal developer. So we support App Service, we support functions. Or if you're a Java guy, we support Azure Spring Cloud. That's for the Java people like me. In terms of databases, we've got all the SQL databases, like PostgreSQL, MySQL, and so on. And NoSQL with Cosmos DB. And then we add also a few services which we find are really interesting for people. Where we had a look at the stats, what people are using in Azure. So we took application insights for monitoring because that's what everybody uses for monitoring, Key Vault for securing, blob storage, Redis cache, and so MongoDB with Cosmos DB. Those are the main services that people use on Azure. So we're not supporting all the Azure services. We could add more quite easily. It's just a matter of time, of course. But we're trying to support the main stuff that people use. And then, well, I would say it's just Terraform. So either what we generate is perfect from you because you only use, you deploy a Go application with a PostgreSQL database and you want Key Vault for securing. And that's, nothing to do. I mean, we support everything, so it's all done. But maybe we miss one thing that you want, well, then you need to edit the Terraform code. And well,
Sure.
That's what we said again. You just git push and then GitHub Actions kicks in and we'll update it. So we have some limitations, but honestly, for somebody doing something, I would say normal, it should be enough to deploy any kind of app to Azure.
Yeah, I was playing with NubesGen a little bit earlier today. And I saw that essentially what it's doing for you is it's giving you kind of a zip file filled with certain packages, or I should say it's packaged up to take all these config files. So I saw you get a Terraform main, some parameters, or I should say variables. And then you also get a GitHub Actions workflow to kind of make it all work. And so all I really did was I created a new branch, I committed to the branch, and then I watched it kind of kick off everything, create my infrastructure, do my build, and then eventually do my deployment. And it made a lot of sense. But here's a question that I have in relation to that. Is it just for GitHub? Could I use other repo providers if I wanted to?
Oh, so, well, the GitOps part, the CI/CD system is only for GitHub because it uses GitHub Actions, so it's limiting to GitHub. The Terraform part is totally independent of GitHub. You could use a Subversion, CVS.
Yeah.
It would work. It's so the only thing that limits you to GitHub is a GitHub action. It's not doing something which is incredibly complicated. It's like so running Terraform. Terraform init, Terraform apply. And then it's using some commands to deploy to Azure. So we've got specific GitHub Actions to deploy to Azure, but I mean, it's support. I mean, Azure is supported by all the big CI/CD players. It's nothing very complex, and you can even do it with the command line, with the AZ CLI. So there is an advantage of using GitHub Actions because we generate that action for you, but the action is not the most complicated part. So the complicated part is Terraform, and then the methodology. But again, it's just a state of mind. Just doing following the methodology, and that's not a technical issue in itself.
Yeah, so I see it right here, this GitOps YAML file that it created, and I didn't have to write any of this. All I actually have to do if I want to is customize, say, if I want to change my Node.js version, if I'm deploying, if I want to use a different build type of server, like instead of Ubuntu 20.4, there are all these things that you can do to customize what you actually need and make it a little bit tuned for what you have. And I know that there's the stuff within Terraform also is modularized, where if you wanted to add on your own portions, you can.
Oh yeah, we spend a lot of time. So the idea, exactly what you show. We try to have something which is generated for you, so you have nothing to do. Then we expose what we think would be interesting for you to tune, like an Node.js version. Then if you want to change everything, then you need to change the code itself, and the generated code, and that's fine also, of course. So you're probably not limited. Then we also spend a lot of time, so mostly with Terraform. Most of the work is in the infrastructure as code configuration, and in Terraform we try to use most of the best practices we could find. So we work with people from HashiCorp, from Terraform, to have like good modules and so on, to have something which is good. Because Terraform, usually, you just start with Terraform, you do a big main.tf, and then 1 month later, you realize you should have modularized it and you were not following the best practices. So we try to have the best practices from HashiCorp to have something which is good for you. And we try to have the best practices from Azure. If you look at the providers that we use, for example, we use something called CAF, which is the Cloud Adoption Framework, which is done by Microsoft. We've got our own Terraform provider for that, and it's used, for example, for namings. So we've got naming conventions in Azure, which are not obvious. And so usually when people start with Azure, like they click around, they put a random name, and then after a few months, they realize, there are naming conventions, and that's for a good reason. and then so they need to do it all over again. And here the idea is that we generate everything which is following all the best practices from, let's say, HashiCorp for Terraform and Microsoft for Azure. So you've got like the good modules, the good naming conventions, everything is there for you. So what is generated is like very carefully crafted. So you have something good for the future. So it's not just, I would say, a one shot. You have something, you can rely on it and you can grow on it. It's not the kind of code you would write the first time when you learn the technology. So
sure. So do you want to show me a little bit about what you got to do today? Yeah,
let's get started because it's already 20 past the hour, so we need to get started. So yeah, so you've got my screen here. I'm just going to move the mic a little bit. Sure. So the idea today was to create a new app using JHipster. So JHipster, we've got different ways to generate an app. The easiest way is this start.jhipster.tech. It's a web app. And basically you click and you generate an app. I'm going to use that and go very quickly because today the idea is not to show JHipster or to show Java code. So it's not really important. The idea is just to have a real apps that you could deploy. So the JHipster app we're going to deploy, and I'm going to create it on my GitHub account, and I'm going to use, I'm always calling them GDUA, so I remember it's a test. I'm going to create a monolithic application. So what I mean by this is we're going to have a big Java backend, with database and everything, and also a big front end with Angular. Something. Again, I want to do something realistic. If it's just an hello world that just says hello, well, everybody's going to say, yeah, I could have done the same thing. I don't need any tool for that. So I want to have something a little bit realistic. Otherwise, it's not fun. So I'm going to keep like also default. So my database is going to be PostgreSQL.
Okay.
We could change, by the way, but I've got some statistics in JHipster which shows that most Java developers are using PostgreSQL today. So that's why I'm sticking with it. But we support MySQL and so on. MongoDB is a fun one, by the way, because so here JHipster only understands MongoDB, but in NubesGen and Azure, we have got MongoDB support through Cosmos DB. And so Cosmos DB supports the MongoDB API, well, not all of it, but most of it. And this fully works. So if you select MongoDB here, you can deploy to Cosmos DB. And Cosmos DB is awesome for different reasons, very distributed, scalable, and so on. But also, there's a great free tier. So if you want to deploy for free, that's where you need to go.
Yeah, I worked for MongoDB for a little bit, and I really like what Microsoft has done with our implementation for Azure. I think it makes a ton of sense. I really appreciate that they've put a lot of time into trying to making sure that it's as supported as possible, using as much of the native features that they can.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some licensing things that come along with another company's software, but we've done a really good job using open source technology to kind of make it. And I think the big idea for Cosmos DB personally is the distribution and replication process, less than just the features, because in the end, a lot of people, they need to do some search, they need to do some aggregation, and then the presentation of the data. What actually ends up being more important a lot of times is that reliability, that scalability, and that distribution.
Yeah, exactly. So let me just go on. I'm going to remove a few options to have something a bit lighter, because otherwise, get internationalization and so on. It's a bit too big. I'm going to generate that on GitHub. And for people who are live, you can go to my GitHub account. I'm going to give the link in the chat, and you can have a look at the app. It's a standard GitHub application. I haven't been tweaking it too much. Once we've got that app, I'm going to clone it. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code to open it. And then we're going to have a look at that GitOps thing and NubesGen, of course. So here's my app. I'm going to copy paste that to the chat if people are interested to have a look at the app by itself. I will download it. I will delete it in a few hours. It's just a test. If you want to do the same, just go to start.jhipster.tech. So you just click a bit on it, and it's very, very easy to do. So I'm going to clone this. I'm going to, take my terminal. Let's go to desktop. Let's take a new directory and git clone that thing. And I'm going to open this up. CD. I'm going to open it up in IntelliJ because I'm a Java guy. So I said IntelliJ. I said Visual Studio Code before, but for I don't know. I feel more confident with IntelliJ today. Depends on the current feeling, Both work the same. For Java, it's a little bit better, but for everything else, honestly, Visual Studio Code is better. It's faster. And you see, I did some advertisement for them, and I've got some errors. So should have used Visual Studio Code. So it's opening up everything. It's all fully configured because JHipster configures everything for you, but that's not the main subject today. We're going to see quickly. Okay, that it generated some Java code in Java. So I've got lots of Java code, and I've got some Angular code here. Not going to click through there because we're going to lose all our time for that. But just trust me, there's a lot of Java, lots of Angular, and some database also. So that's something pretty complicated. If I wanted to deploy that now to Azure, it would be, either you go through the portal and you click around and that's going to take some time. If you use the CLI, it's also going to take it's more reproducible, but then you're going to have a look at quite a number of commands.
Sure.
If you want to deploy, it's going to be complicated. So we've got some great plugins also in Azure, but if you want to do all of this, it's going to take me some time. And if I want to replicate that, so let's say we work together, and I deployed everything from my account. So got like a branch like Julien, and I say, oh Jay, please come do your own branch and do the same thing as me. How am I going to explain that to you? If you use a portal, I'm going to tell you click here, click. It's impossible to work together. So we need a better way to do that, and that's where GitOps is coming. So let me go back to NubesGen. So here it is, and I'm going to. So as you see, it's basically the same thing. I did both. So you can obviously I did twice something similar. So here I'm going to give a project name. I will keep demo by default. I'm going to deploy to France to West Europe, because that's where I live. As we said, so we support different types of applications. So web apps with Azure Web Apps, serverless with Azure Functions and Azure Spring Cloud. And here I can deploy different types of apps. I can use Docker with Docker files. That's the default that would work for everybody. And then we've got different versions. As you can see, if you with Java, you're lucky. You've got different versions. Like JHipster created a Spring Boot application. I could Dockerize it, so it's same thing as the Docker option, but better with Spring Boot. Or I can run it with Java. So for Azure App Services, we support Docker, and inside it you can run Java, and we'll also support Java natively. And so both have the pros and cons. So here you've got the choice. I would rather take Java Air for mostly one reason is that it's fully supported by Microsoft from end to end. With my Docker image, I need to support my JDK. I need to have a Docker registry and so on. So it's maybe a little bit more work if I want to use Docker instead of pure Java. Then, to be fully honest, then if you use Docker, it's going to be faster. Because the way that Spring Boot generates its Docker image is faster than what we do by yourself because we do more stuff. so I'm going to use this one. I'm going to take, let's say, a standard tier. I'm going to take something a bit fast so we don't lose time. I'm going to take the database. We selected PostgreSQL, so I'm going to take PostgreSQL. I'll take a basic one because honestly, we're going to have like a few tables. We don't need something very complicated. And I'm going to use, let's take application insights for monitoring because that's what everybody would need. Maybe Key Vault, for securing your keys. I like to have that options. Otherwise, your database secrets, for example, they will be available as environment variables, which is cool but not super secured. And if you store them in Key Vault, it's a much better practice because you can separate, who manages the keys and who deploys. But also, it's more secured inside your app because your app doesn't have easy access to those keys.
And there's various drivers for all types of different languages to have Key Vault part of your application if necessary.
Yeah. So here I'm using. So there are different ways to use Key Vault. Here I'm using like a direct integration with the app service, so it's super easy. But if you want to do more, there's an SDK, and so the SDK is available in all languages. And if you're a Java guy like me, it's even better because with Java, most people use Spring Boot, and with Spring Boot, we've got a specific starter for Key Vault. So basically, you don't even know how Key Vault works, and that starter will configure everything for you, and you will see your Key Vault variables as Spring variables. So you don't even know how it works, and you still use it. And then again, if you want to go into the detail and better understand, then you've got the full Java SDK. But for Java people, it's very easy to use. And of course, I will check the GitOps checkbox because otherwise it won't be fun. I've got different ways to work with that. I could download the zip file. I'm just going to download it just to show that it works. Okay, I'm going to download it.
And you just get a package.
And you go to package and you unzip it. I prefer to use curl because I find it's easier, but that's what
I did.
And sorry, I forgot one thing to do. We've got a quick start here, and there's one thing to do. It's to use that command. So I'm going to run it in my app. Let's open the terminal here.
And that's like working to create a connection between Terraform, Azure, and eventually what's going to be your NubesGen GitOps configuration.
Yeah, right? It's going to do two things, basically. So if I go back to my GitHub repo, if I go to settings, and if I go to secrets, so I shouldn't have any secrets yet. So it's going to
like environment variable secrets. Yeah, the environment variable secrets within GitHub is a really great feature. I love the fact that you could just state them in your actions file and call them. So it's really useful if you want to just store, say, something like a service principal and then refer to that service principal when necessary.
And that's exactly what I'm doing here. Basically, we create two secrets. So there is the service principal. So that gives access to Azure from GitHub Actions. That's how GitHub Actions can create any Azure resources. And the second thing that it creates, it's a Terraform. It's a storage account inside Azure. So Terraform, you can use it. So on your local machine, and Terraform uses a state, to know its current state and know the state of the cloud, and it's going to synchronize them together. It works very well when you're alone, but imagine again with two people and we're working together. Well, you need a shared state that is stored somewhere, and that's that second key that is going to be created. Yeah, it's a storage account, which basically is going to be locked. And so when I deploy, I'm going to lock it. So I'm the only one who deploy and who updates the infrastructure. And if you want to update something, you need to wait. And then when it's a lock, you can do it again. It's a distributed lock, which is very useful. Well, you don't have much choice. If you want to update your infrastructure, you can't do it in parallel. I can't update my database and you update it at the same time. We're going to have a big mess in our infrastructure at the end. So we need a distributed lock, and that's what it's doing. So it creates service principal, like you said, that's Azure credentials here, and it creates a distributed lock, and that's all it does. But already it's important. And then so I'm going to paste my my curl command. And so that curl command, as we can see, created quite a lot of Terraform code. Let's have a quick look at what was generated. You already showed some of it. So in GitHub, it's a .github directory. I had a GitHub action where we can see that. So we're going to apply the Terraform configuration. We're going to build the Java project and we're going to deploy it. Again, nothing weird here. The real magic is in the Terraform directory. Where we have quite a few Terraform modules which have been configured. So we've got app service to deploy our Java app. We've got application insights for monitoring. We've got Key Vault for securing. We've got PostgreSQL for database. Well, everything that we selected is here. And so if I know Terraform, or if I'm not happy with something, I can just click on them and update stuff. Like, I don't know, I'm not happy with that SKU. I want another one. Well, I can change it here. If I don't know anything, and that's the original goal for NubesGen, we want something easy for beginners. Well, you don't need to have a look at that. That was well made by us, so don't worry too much. And what all you need to do is you git add everything, git commit, let's say deploy, and you're going to git push this. Well, we work with branches here, so I'm going to do different git branches. I'm going to do git checkout. Let's do one for me.
Sure.
I'm going to git push on this. Oh, sorry, I need to change the upstream.
Yep, set upstream.
And let's switch git checkout man, and let's do one for you.
Sure.
We do different stuff. I will need to have some idea to make something different for you. But so here, basically, with two developers. Each of us is on its branch. Each of us can modify the code, of course. That's as a Java developer, that's what you would probably do most of the time. But also we can change the configuration. So maybe you're not going to use the same database as me. Maybe you want to play with, I don't know, with Java. So we with on Java 11, I think by default. Yeah, maybe you're not happy with that. Sorry, Java 17 is not available yet on Azure, but it will be very, very soon. I just had a call with them earlier. It's going to appear very, very soon. So maybe I want to test Java 17 and you want to stay on Java 11. So maybe I will change some stuff and I will git push and I will have a different version of Java. And while both of us are on a branch, so we do whatever we want. And as you saw, what I do is just git push. And what we said before, we just one git push away from going to Azure. So what's happening in my GitHub Actions? Hopefully it's working. We can see here we've got our two branches. We've got Julien and Jay. And let's take yours, the first one. Here we've got our GitHub action running. It's doing two things. It's creating the infrastructure using Terraform. It's building the Java application. And once everything is done, it will deploy. And we'll just click and hopefully everything will work. So you
That's always the hope.
Yeah, you never know. So the first build will be a bit slow because we need to create. So we selected app service, PostgreSQL, Key Vault. All those other services need to be created. So it's taking usually between 5 and 10 minutes. The Java build is in parallel. The first Java build might be a bit slow also because we need to download the dependencies for Java and Node.js because we've got also some Node.js front end here. So there's a lot of things to deploy. To download and then to build. Once it's done one time, next time everything will be cached and also the infrastructure will be there. So the next git push will be much faster. So usually it takes between 5 and 10 minutes to do everything. So that's why we have time to talk. And then just if we have time, we'll do it again. We'll do more deploys, but the next deploys are much faster. So as
Sure.
a developer, all I do is I code my Java stuff here. Maybe I update some Terraform configuration because, I don't want to be with I don't want to be with Linux here. I want to be with Windows. So maybe I'm going to change that, and then I git push, and it's going to update everything.
Sure.
So the workflow is super easy.
I've got one up and running. I can kind of peek at while you're waiting for your build. So I was working on this earlier, and I just was working with a simple Node.js application, and you can see, one of the first commits I did was configuring GitOps with NubesGen. After I grabbed the package file, I went ahead and I ran that kind of prerequisite where you configure GitOps in your app. And then I went ahead and triggered a build within this env developer branch that I created. And I'll let you kind of talk more about it when we get finished with yours. But basically, you're doing what a normal GitHub action would do, which is when it sees it change to one of the branches or something like that, it'll kick off a build. And what I like here is that because you can just specify, I have some Terraform files and I want them to be built, it goes ahead, applies that Terraform configuration, does that successful initialization, and then allows you to kind of set some parameters here, like the name of your application. And so here's the thing that I really thought was great was I could just go into the code and let's say that there's something about this application that needs to be changed. I don't necessarily need to do much more than do a git commit and watch it. So let's just go real quickly into the branch that I was working on. Let's go to the workflows. GitOps.
Of course, I did not know you created that before, and I just wanted to thank one of our colleagues, Johan Larosa, is the one who did the GitHub workflow here for JavaScript, and he did a few tricks. So if we have a close look, we can see some of his tricks, and his deployment process is very fast. I saw you deploy in like 2 minutes. It's super fast to do everything. It's as you said, it's what experienced people would do, but that's not exactly what you have by default. Let me just compare with Java because, of course, I know Java better. If you create an application service for Java by default, you're on Windows with Java 8, I think. And here we push Linux with Java 11. It's because we know it's faster and it's cheaper. So you're going to have the same experience because Java works the same on both, but we're selecting for you something which is not the default because we know it's going to be better for you. And so here Johan did the same thing for Node.js. He did a few tricks which are not the default, and you benefit from it.
Well, I'm going right here and I'm just showing an example if I need to change something from the default. So let's say that my application needs Node version 12, which is one of the versions that's available in Azure for app service. What I can do next is just start a commit and just say modifying our Node version. And then I can just commit directly to this branch. And so what we can do is just head over to Actions. And that push to that particular branch kicked off a build that will eventually start doing the same thing. And so our infrastructure, I believe, is idempotent. And so that even if it's built, which it is, it'll run the Terraform configuration again, and it won't necessarily overwrite it or anything. It'll just continue on with the infrastructure that you have and allow it to deploy to that so that you're just doing a single git push. You're not having to recreate everything every time. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. So I was looking at my build, and
sure.
and we have a cool demo effect because I had one failure, but we'll have a look. It's always interesting to see also when it fails. That's why I was distracted by that, but it's cool. So first of all, the first build is working. So we'll wait a little bit, but you see it created everything in 5 minutes, and the build is in parallel. So that's building the app, managing the infrastructure, everything is quite fast. Again, it's a complete app, with a front end, a back end. There's lots of tests. We creating lots of services. It's not something which is a hello world. So the hello world is basically what you did. It's taking like 2 minutes. Something more complex is 5 minutes. It's honestly quite okay. And deployment is a bit slow, but then it's just app service deploying it. So we'll just wait. It's going to work, and we'll have a look. So this one works. It's fine. The other one failed, and that's because I did a mistake. It's totally my fault, but it's interesting to have a look when it fails. So that's why I wanted to also to show that. So the managed infrastructure failed, and immediately, you just click, you've got the error. So it's very easy to do. And we can see that I had an error while creating Key Vault, and it's totally my fault. Maybe it's even a bug in NubesGen. So Key Vault is pretty recent. And you remember I didn't select a name. I kept the default name. So what we do in that case is that we generate some random number. So you've got a unique name, and you don't clash with other names, and that's cool. And usually, normally, we add also the branch that you're using, so we don't clash. And here I didn't put the branch name, so I had a little bug here that I'm going to fix. But what is interesting, because that's the kind of thing that's going to happen to you when you create anything on Azure. A lot of the names need to be unique, like Key Vault. So here, so it's because the other build went faster than this one. If you want to create a database and app service, everything, those things need to have unique names across Azure. And if you, I don't know, you want to create, I want to create my app and I call it Julien. There's probably somebody else called Julien who also created it. And I'm going to have an issue. And if you add lots of resources like the database, app service, Key Vault, app insights, you're adding more and more risk to have somebody who's going to have the same name as you. So that's typically the kind of error you have. Yeah? Somebody already took that name, or I did a bug. We need to have a look. What's interesting here is that I've got something, you see, I just clicked. It was very obvious. And then, well, what I can do is I come back to my branch, and I'm going to change the name, and I'm going to git push, and it's going to create it again. So it's no big deal. Hang on, which branch was it? It was.
I think it was the J one. Yep. NJ branch.
NJ. Yeah, it was the second one, of course. Yeah, so the first one succeeded, by the way. So if I come back here to my IntelliJ, I just need to change the branch. I'm already on the right branch, so that's perfect. And if I go to Key Vault, I need to have a look at the name. If I want to do something quick and dirty, as you see, the name is created here. I just put some random name instead. Let's say J, with some random numbers. This is going to be, sorry.
So all good. No problem.
And I'm just going to do git push, and hopefully this one is unique. And then it's going to create it, and that's all. So I'm going to do git add, git. I'm going what? Yeah, we got still 10 minutes. Maybe we can have it. I'm tapping on the command line because otherwise, it's well, I believe it's easier for people to understand.
Sure.
Let's say YOLO and git push. That's the beauty of it, by the way. So I just modify my stuff, git push. I should have also changed. Well, it's too late now. I already git pushed. I should also have change some JavaScript code or some Java code so people can see everything is working together. Let's just go. And YOLO is already here. I just switch the window. It's already there. So it's really super easy and super fast to modify your own infrastructure, modify your code, and git push, and you're there. Let me just go to the one which deployed. If I click here. At the end, we're going to have a link to the app. And if we go there, it should be a JHipster application. Yes, it's running. And I can sign in. So admin. That's the default login password on JHipster.
And is that being stored in the database that you created?
Yeah, we're going to have a look at, we can have some basic look at the database here. Hang on, did I click?
So the actual connection string relationship, is that all managed through the process of creating it with
so I wanted to show you the app and most things, but that's your question is great. It's more important. So trust me on the GitHub Actions, trust me on the web app, it's working. And let's have a look at what was created inside Azure, because that's more important, because that's where all the magic is, and otherwise we don't see the magic. What is super interesting here is that we didn't have a look at all at Azure yet. So if you're somebody who doesn't know Azure, just say it's like git push. It's working. No idea how Azure works. No idea what the portal is. So it's very good for beginners. Then, of course, when you know about Azure, you can do much better. But already, that's the first good point, is that I could do everything without knowing much about Azure. And now let's have a look at what it created. It created a resource group. As you can see, we're following the Cloud Adoption Framework naming convention. So it's RG for resource group. We've got the name of our app, and at the end, we've got our branch name. And it created several resources. And if I go to app service, because I think that's what you were talking about the database commands. If I go to configuration, it configured my app service in a specific way. So it selected Linux, Java 11, so on, but it also created some specific application settings. Here we've got App Insights, which was created here. So the App Insight instrumentation key is not something which is secured. You can even put it in your front end. So that one you can have access like here as an environment variable.
So these are just environment variables, essentially.
So we've got environment variables, but it's more than that. So let's say if let's say a normal Java person, somebody not using any framework, so you've got environment variables, well, the database URL is here. Well, it's up to you to get it and use it. If you're a Spring guy, it's even better because, as you saw, I didn't configure anything because Spring uses some specific environment variables, and that's the ones that we're using here. So that's why we auto-configure Spring for you. So we go further for people using some frameworks. And then also, maybe you don't want the password to be in clear text. And as we can see here, it's not in clear text, it's a key vault reference. So here, my app doesn't have access to the password. It's stored in key vault. And as a developer, if I go to key vault here, I want to have a look at the password. Let's go there. And so it's secrets. And I'm not allowed because by default, I'm not allowed to have access to it. So somebody else has access to it. Basically, you need to change the policies. I mean, I could give myself access, then you need to change the policies and give access to my user, and then I can see them. But here, the whole idea is we're following all the best practices to secure your code, to auto-configure everything. And as you could see, as let's say somebody who's beginning with Azure, I have no idea about that, and it's working. So that's awesome for me. But then when I level up in Azure, when I don't know, I'm going to Microsoft Learn. I'm learning stuff from Microsoft Learn. Sorry, even better. You follow the Learn module for Key Vault with Java, which is going to be out very soon and which I'm writing. Well, imagine the Learn module that I'm writing, of course, is the same thing as what I automated here. It's exactly the same code, of course. The same guy is doing both. So if you follow my Learn module, which will be out, I don't know, soon, as you said, there's Ignite next week. So we're not releasing any new Learn module now because there's Ignite next week. So you need to go to Ignite first, and then we'll have the Learn modules. So when the Learn module will be out, well, you will probably understand better how this works, and maybe you will want to tune that. And it will be awesome because, you will understand everything and you will know what you're doing. But the good thing is now I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm still doing it and still working, and just git push and it works, which is hopefully, from my point of view, of great help for beginners on Azure and people who want to deploy, I would say, non-Hello World, basic stuff. If you just want to deploy in Hello World on Azure, it's quite easy. We've got plugins, you right click, it's deploying. But as soon as you've got the database, you've got monitoring, you've got security, well, here's the learning curve is much, much higher.
It looks like I'm going to have to use that JHipster generator to be able to build something myself to play around with this, because when I did it, I just did it with a hello world, made it really easy for myself to just get, all right, let's at least understand the basics today. And I think that one of the things I just really love about that, and we can start to wrap up, I love that the Terraform configuration is built for you and for each individual module that you need. I think that really helps simplify the process of creating infrastructure. And like you said, I think Bicep is next. I love using Bicep, another way to create infrastructure on Azure. It's just a native, and it has, if I'm right, if it's new on Azure, it's in Bicep.
Yeah,
They're
Bicep will
one-to-one.
support more stuff than Terraform because, well, that's how we use it by yourself. So, for something like what I'm doing here, like, I don't know, PostgreSQL, probably both of them will be supported equally. Well, hang on, there's some new PostgreSQL option. There's PostgreSQL Flexible, which is awesome. And that's what you should use. And I think Terraform, Microsoft is doing the Terraform provider for it. So we do it ourselves, but still Bicep will still be earlier. So Bicep will support more stuff. And also, the deployment is available in Azure. So it's easier to understand. Then Terraform, there is good reasons to use Terraform. It's there's historic reasons. Lots of people have been using it for years, so they don't want to change. It's also good for people who want to do multi-cloud. If you want to deploy other stuff, so obviously, Bicep will not support that. And there's a great open source community. There is a lot of plugins which are really nice. I'm guessing Bicep will get there too soon. But
I really like what Alex and Satya and the rest of that team have really done with the product. They've made it move forward pretty quickly. And we talked a little bit about it at Create DevOps last week. I was lucky to have Marcus Felling, who just left that team. But when he was with that team, he was helping spread the knowledge around.
It's very close to so I mean we're coding the Bicep support in parallel to Terraform. It's a little bit later because we started with Terraform. Well, when we started, Bicep didn't exist, so
absolutely,
of course we started, we didn't use it at first, but yeah, it's very close with some advantages, pros and cons like any technology, but it's very close, very good. And and also the support inside is, I forgot one very good reason to use Bicep. It's inside the AZCLI. Because here with Terraform, I'm a bit annoyed. You saw, so you need to install Terraform if you want to use it locally.
Yep, AZCLI has Bicep built right into it.
So much easier to use if you want to do a demo. Yeah, sometimes when I do my demos, a great resource for people also is to go to shell.azure.com. And if you go to shell.azure.com, you've got a full Linux running inside Azure. And you can do everything, and you're logged in. And here, like, if you want to use, and you're already authenticated inside Azure, so here, if you want to use Bicep, it's like perfect, And you can do the curl command I did. So you curl NubesGen, and then you just apply it, and it's working. It's an excellent way to run your commands.
Well, Julien, we're just about out of time, and I wanted to say thank you so much. I know the hour flies right by. And so thank you for being part of this today. If you would like to get in touch with Julien, his name is right below him right there. You can catch him on Twitter. Anything, we got about 30 seconds. Any other stuff you want people to know about or how to get in touch with you, or is that all good?
Oh, no. So thank you for inviting me. We had a lot of fun, lots of code and deployment, even a failed deployment, which is always fun. That's why we do live coding. It's because it's fun. And if you want to get in touch with me, ping me on Twitter. And if you want to contribute, we forgot to say, both NubesGen and JHipster, they're all open source, community driven, and so on. So if you want to contribute, you're also welcome to code with us. It's fun. So
very cool. So until next time, everybody, we'll be off next week because of Ignite. I will see you then. Let's give everybody the big wave goodbye. Thank you, Julien.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
No problem. We'll see you all next time on AzureFunBytes. Take care.
Yeah.